So hello and welcome to Kitty Talks. We share inspirational life stories that empower you to create yours. And I have been dying to get this gentleman on the show for a long time. He is somebody that lives locally to me, and he's our first professional sports person that we've had on the show. But Lewis Crathern, who I'm about to introduce you to, is a 4 times British champion. He's a professional kite surfer, and he's the 2016 Vice World Champion. And he's somebody, for me, who is an amazing example of somebody who lives his life by following his passions. And he's lucky enough, and he'll tell us that story, that he got into kite surfing at a really, really young age. But Lewis, welcome to Kitty Talks.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I'm excited about our conversation. We've just had a little bit of a preamble before our interview, and I think that you're going to be able to share some great wisdom with our audience. But I would love for you just to set the scene, tell our listeners who you are and what you're doing in the world at the moment.
Okay, my name is Lewis Crathern. I'm a professional kite surfer, which to some might be a strange profession, but my job involves competing in competitions. I'm also a commentator and a presenter. I love to speak and present, and I also visit schools using kite surfing as a tool to engage young people on eco matters, the beach, the weather, whatever sort of themes they're doing at school. Kite surfing is really exciting, so interactive assemblies and things like that is what I do in schools. And I'm also a professional coach, so I coach people how to jump higher as well. I juggle my career between those 4 things.
How cool. And would you say that those 4 things are things that you truly are passionate about?
Definitely. I couldn't do any of those things if I wasn't passionate about them. In fact, they've all come together to be part of my career by just pure interest. I never started off as anything but a competitor, and then my love for talking and presenting came into it, and coaching and visiting schools and talking to young people. It's all come from just being passionate.
And do you mind sort of taking us back? Because obviously, tell us the story about how you got into kite surfing, because I know you've been in it for a very long time, and that you started when you were young. But I'd love for you to explain the story to our audience.
Okay, I was born on the beach pretty much here in Worthing. My parents moved down. I think my dad was from Guildford and my mum was from Crawley, and they met and moved to Worthing, and the house was, about 100 meters from the seafront. So I grew up with the ocean in my life, and I've always been into sports. And then at around 15, I decided to persuade my dad to pick up a windsurfer out of the Friday ad, which were free. Everyone was giving them away because windsurfing's been around a lot longer. The sport has been here since sort of the 70s and 80s. There's a lot of old free stuff, and that was a real good decision of mine. It was a risk. I took a risk and persuaded my dad to get this big stuff. It was free out the paper. Learned how to use the power of the wind to move around on the ocean, and then I bought my first kite a few years after, in 2002, 2003, when kite surfing was really booming on the shores of the UK, and that was that. I stayed really into it ever since.
Well, so you were hooked on kite surfing from sort of day one?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't get my head around how you could do something for free. That's very far and few between, the activities that you can do these days. I mean, as soon as I left high school, I realised that all the sports you do, you have to pay for. It's all free at high school. I like to tell the kids this, that everything you do at school is free, but as soon as you leave, you have to pay for tennis or football games or badminton. Everything and anything in life is free. But with kite surfing, once you got the equipment, it's still free to do it on the ocean, and there's no real rules out there and control. It's a very free feeling to do a sport like this. That's what I love about it.
And obviously where you grew up, Worthing, happens to be, is it the British well, you were explaining to me that it's an amazing place for kite surfing. It's probably one of the best in Britain.
Well, it's become the kite surfing capital of the country due to a number of things. First and foremost, its quality of wind. It's a very windy place. It's known as Windy Worthing, as you might know as well from living in some time. But it's Windy Worthing, so that's the number one thing we need as kite surfers is good wind. We don't need big waves, which is the common misconception. You know, people often think that it's better down in Cornwall or somewhere like that, but that's just quality of waves. We need wind strength, and we don't need the waves to jump either. They help us, but we just need good wind and a surface of water. And then as for kite surfers, what we really love is good access to the beach. So Worthing has great free parking all the way along and a big grass green. We've got a good beginner spot in Lancing. We've just got a great town here, good access to the ocean and good wind quality, and that really can do wonders for a location when kite surfing come about. You know, it went from 5 kite surfers on the water to, you know, I think on the biggest days here, I've seen 100 kites in the air. It's really special.
And talk us through, because obviously, you know, kite surfing was a hobby up until, well, for quite a few years. And talk us through the kind of transition in your own mindset about when you knew you could make it a career.
When I knew I could make it a career, I think I didn't focus too much on that. I mean, I had my parents when I was living at home who were naturally worried that I was, you know, trying to do something for a job that wasn't going to pay as well as a normal trade-like job. I had 2 brothers working very sort of regularish jobs, and I was the odd one out saying I want to be a kite surfer. And I never worried too much about the moment where I thought, right, this is really my job or not. I just kept on kite surfing. It's basically the answer. I went to college for 2 years, not because I wanted to study college, but it was the best option to give myself more time to practice kite surfing. I didn't fancy going to work Monday to Friday straight after high school. So I thought, right, how can I kite surf? Well, I went to college, and through that, I learned 2 wonderful skills. I learned photography and web design and IT. Just by chance, I chose those things. And they've really helped me in my life now, actually, those things I learned at school. But basically, I actually extended to 3 years of college. My 3rd year, I was part-time at college. I think I was doing 4.5 hours a week. But I told a little white lie to my parents and said I was full-time. So they didn't really look into it. And I was kite surfing all the time. I engineered my life so that I could, as much as possible, do the thing I love, which is quite a difficult thing to do, but I was just obsessed with kite surfing. So before long, it was only a couple of years that my previous sports experience and background helped me. I learned loads off springboards and diving boards, and I knew how to be upside down on. I was always the kid on bouncy castles as a kid that your parents were worried was going to break their neck or something, you know. So kite surfing really helped me develop into sort of an athlete with all those skills. And I'd say there wasn't one moment where I thought, right, this is my job now. It's always felt like it's just been something I love to do. And now I suppose I sit here 10, 13 years on and it is my job, but it's never felt that way. It's my passion first and foremost.
But that must have been quite tricky, because obviously I think it isn't the way we're educated that you can, you know, if you think about a traditional schooling, we go to school and we get educated. You know, your parents and everybody else's parents have been educated in such a way that go to school, get good grades, and then get a good job. So it must have been quite difficult, because obviously, like you said, you just wanted to do what you loved. But obviously, and, you know, understandably so, your parents probably want to protect you. But how did you get around that? How did you, in your own head?
It's a good question, and it's one that I often feel is things are a bit wrong sometimes in schools, of really forcing that one way to do things style approach. But I think naturally as a kid, I mean, I'm into football. I must have watched so many football games where these guys were on TV playing football as their job. There's so many instances, not just football, in your life that you meet people that are doing things they love to do, and you might think, oh, how are they doing that? That's not possible. But they are all around you in your life, and whether you choose to pay attention to that or not is maybe the thing that really stands out for you. And I did notice that. I mean, I was obviously obsessed with kite surfing. That was all I wanted to do. But I was convinced that I wasn't meant to be doing something I didn't enjoy. Maybe it was just that I didn't just accept, right, I've got to do. I mean, I did do some hard part-time jobs to know that. And I think that's important also to mention, is that
Absolutely.
unless you are doing things you don't want to do. My dad always said to me, sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do. And I laid flooring all around Wembley floor, you know, thousands and tens of thousands of pieces for 48-hour shifts every now and then, whilst to support my kite surfing. It was those moments where I realised, ironically, that moment at Wembley Stadium where the best of the British football players would play football. At the time, I was British champion, really struggling to make a living as a kite surfer, that I was like, wow, this is unfair. I'm here in this place, but I really think that I can do it. You need those moments.
I think you're right, though. I think you need those moments of perspective as well. Like, you know, one of the things that we are teaching, I suppose, with this podcast is we interview people like yourself who have really followed their passions, and they're not taking the traditional path. Actually, they're people that are forging their own path. And that in itself, I think, is difficult, because I think you and I were talking before we came on air, and you were saying, you know, it's for you, you're kind of, it's not like there's been someone who's been there and done what you're doing. So it's almost like you have to sort of develop that instinct and trust with yourself that you'll go in the right direction and that things are going to work.
Definitely. And I think that in all instances of life, for every person individually, how many times you must have been in a position where you're really worried about something in life, and then a week later, 2 weeks later, that worry is gone. There's either a new one or you're thinking about something else. It's this constant stages that once you get through them and they come again, you become a bit more experienced. And as we were talking about before the show, is the trust element, to trusting that you will get through that moment and find a positive solution and on to the next one. And the more those things leak up, after a while, you almost become autopilot to it. You just let it flow and take its direction. And if you're positive about it and had good experiences being that way in the past, then it naturally takes its course. And that's certainly my ethos of life.
And that's a wonderful ethos of life. And I suppose, can you kind of give us, you know, for somebody listening to this who has a passion, who has a dream, what advice would you have for them? Because, you know, like you said, I think it isn't always plain sailing. I think that's the other thing we should, you know, be honest about, because you were saying that you were working 2 jobs, but at the same time, it was the passion for the kite surfing that kind of got you through, and that, you know, you started to develop that trust.
I would say that remaining passionate, number one, is if there's no passion, you won't be able to do it, you know. But if you're really passionate about doing something, possibly don't listen to the people that say that you can't do it. There's so many people in life that do not believe in anything but the traditional way of working really hard in a career you don't enjoy so much, and that's the way. And it's listening to the positive people that I think is really helpful. And everybody has that small network around them, and the mastermind group that are your closest people and that will talk positively about it. But just not accepting that you're not meant to be doing something you love. It is so possible to do it, and surround yourself with those people every day on a daily basis. When you come into contact with someone doing something they love to do for their work, speak to them, see how they did it possibly. But there's your way in life. We talk about the journey of the traditional journey. Every single person has their own individual journey, and I think you need to remember that it is your journey and your way that you want to do things. But staying passionate is my number one. It keeps coming back to that if the passion's not there, that would be my worry. If the passion's not there for my kite surfing, which it will never not be there, I know that that's not what I'm meant to do, but it carries me through whilst it is.
Absolutely. I think that's really good advice, because I think when you're doing something that you love, even when you hit the turbulent times, that passion kind of drives and carries you through.
Definitely. Like, I go through 2 or 3 weeks with no wind and get very immersed in the world I'm on the land, as we say. And then suddenly I just have one kite surf session, and actually partaking in the thing I love fixes everything. But I just want to go back on what we were saying about how we spoke a little bit about the traditional way in schools. I very much remember being at school and having the careers officer speak to me, and that was quite a worrying time when they almost sit you in an office, and the careers officer did all my questions and was like, right, you're going to be a landscape gardener, and I wasn't actually, I was like, oh, that's not bad. I just kept saying I want to be outside. My thing was to be outside. And I think that can put a lot of pressure on young people. So any of the young people that might be listening, that school isn't designed to present you with a job when you leave at 16 or 17 or 18. Even university, I have so many friends that went to university and studied things, and they work in completely different environments in their life now. These are just tools and things you learn as you go through school that you can use in other aspects of your life. You're not putting, it felt to me at school like I was put in a box, and that's what I would do. Even if when I chose my options, it was like, right, you're choosing those options, that will lead to this. That isn't the case at all.
Yeah, and it's fascinating actually, Lewis, because I've interviewed over 100 people now, and I interviewed this professional ballerina the other day, and she, similar to you, got into being a ballerina at a very young age, totally her passion. And she's now 20, and she's created this online business of basically it's become her passions are dance and also holistic health. And she's kind of combined everything she's loved. And her mindset is always, I just do what I love and I go after what I really love. And she doesn't have any kind of blocks in the way. And I think it's really real testament to actually what we can do when we break out of that traditional model and follow what feels right for us. But it takes guts because, like you said, I think schools especially can influence, and like you said, you had to kind of talk to your careers advisor.
Yeah, that was quite worrying, that at that age to not be thinking. All I wanted to do at school, and I think everyone's passions start at school or being from children. As a child, you have the most ultimate freedom that you will ever have, and it's something I look at in awe. Every child I see doing things, they don't have phones and internet and distractions, and they're just fully immersed in the planet, and that's where every human's passions start, I believe. And if the closer you can stay to those, is the closer that you'll stay sort of true to the things that you love. And I'm sure, like, you might agree as well, Kitty, that you're doing something you love as well. My life doesn't feel like work. I don't think, Monday, that whole thing of Monday work. Of course there's hard days that I really am working hard, but I'm never like, I hate work, and that's a life-changing thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, sometimes it's really funny because I've come from that ingrained work corporate environment. I still pinch myself sometimes now because I think I need to be working harder, and it's actually, well, no, this is my work. This is what I do. But it's almost like I'm still trying to let go of the conditioning, almost, I suppose.
Would you say that possibly the longer that you're doing something that you don't love as you grow up or in your work life, the harder it is to make a change then?
I think what tends to happen for human beings is we tend to get stuff, like when you're a kid, for example, you don't have that stuff because you haven't, developed their fears or their negative beliefs. And, this is what I witnessed with this ballerina. Whereas when we get older, we have that fear, we can't do what we love. We can't make it work. We have more baggage, I suppose, which we have to sort of put down before we can go after what it is that we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But talk to me about phones, because you just mentioned it then. You said and I really like that conversation because at the moment there's so much comparison that goes on with teenagers, with kids, because they're in this internet world. Like, you don't have a phone, you said to me, which is pretty cool.
No.
What's your choice? What's the reason?
I never get to talk about this. It's quite lovely because my partner's, obviously I have a girlfriend that's actually moved from South Africa, from Cape Town, to be with me in Worthing. And so I haven't had a mobile phone for 2 years. I've not had one. I've always been that guy that had the old little Nokia plastic £10 one with buttons that I'm convinced I can type a text message quicker than anyone with a smartphone. But it was the smartphone movement that never grabbed me. I really repelled them completely because of their 1 day battery life and how much they were trying to do. The simple old phones were like my cut-off point, where they were great and they worked. And then funny enough, my little old Nokia bounced out the van and fell down a drain. I mean, there must be a drain every 50 meters on the beach, and it went plop down the drain. It was funny because it was their £10 replaced, and I wasn't bothered. And I was 2 months away from my winter trip to Cape Town, where I spent 3 months in Cape Town. January, February, March is very cold in England. And I thought to myself, why do I have to have a phone? I really thought hard about it, and it really ate away at me, this whole thing that people want you to have a phone for selfish reasons because they want to get hold of you when they want. Mm-hmm. So I pushed it as far as I could with my partner, who at that point was really not so happy. That I had 2 months to get to Cape Town, and I knew Cape Town you don't need a phone. Everyone's kite surfing. It's like this magical place where you all seem to know where to go because of the wind and weather. And I thought, if I can get to Cape Town, I just had a plan in my head to explore the idea of whether or not I could get out of having a phone, because it's just crazy to me that we spent so long without them, and then now everyone's got to have one. Now, I remember it was the halfway stage of my life that the internet and phones came out. I feel very fortunate that I've experienced half my life with. So it was maybe just a bit over half now. I'm 33. It was 16 when I was at high school and the internet came out, and I loved it. It was so amazing, and there was a real pureness about it. It was about people wanting to connect further around the world, and that was all it was about. And nowadays I really feel it's become a bit more sinister and a bit more evil almost. It's very advertisement related. You can't play a game on an iPad without it being money. Yeah, and I've spend a lot of time looking around in the daytime. I walk around and I look at what's going on, and I feel that people are really missing out by staring down at their phones. And the temptation to do that is so overwhelmingly tempting that I felt that I've got one chance to get out of that. I'm not saying I'm going to have no phone the rest of my life. When I have a family one day, and I probably will have to go down that route. But I found a way where I could just get out for now, and I don't ever feel distracted. I'm never distracted from my task that I'm doing, and I feel so much more relaxed and better. And I genuinely feel, and my partner's been great with this, I think she has accepted that I'm a better person for it. And because of that, I can be better for everybody else. I do my work on my emails and my computer. I can ring people's mobiles if I really need to off Skype. And I have an iPad. I suppose this would be the closest thing to my phone that you could say it is. It has a data SIM in it, and I can send an iMessage or do a FaceTime chat. Okay. But I feel completely, more than anything, like I'm in control now. And it's such an amazing feeling that I drive off down the road and I have a task to do, and nobody distracts me from what I'm doing. So I feel very present. I think that's my favorite word, is that being present, I think, is a very valuable asset in life. And that way I can be as present as I can be.
And it just means that your energy is so much stronger, because like you said, you're not dissipating your energy by dipping into your phone every two. Apparently the average person checks their phone 267 times a day.
Yeah.
Bonkers.
And I don't think people go out of their way to want to do that. It's just this, it's the design of it and the apps and the social media. I really believe it's one of the biggest diseases for humans in the world right now, what it's doing to people and how it's making them feel. And every time you look at an app or social media on there, everything posted on there is somebody else having a great time. And what I think that can do for mental health and things like that is crazy. Nearly all the time you have a little look in there, you get brought down. Yeah. So we have a policy, me and my partner, that we don't have any mobile phones or iPads in the bedroom. that is for that is for going to bed. And I'll be completely honest, there's times where we don't quite stick to it, and then we're like, oh, we need to go back to that. We're not perfect, but we really try to enforce this rule of that we read a book before bed, and it just makes life so much nicer. We go to bed amazingly like that. I know the difference. And then if I decide to watch a bit of football at some, I don't sleep as well. It's very clear the differences of it.
Absolutely. And one of the messages we promote on this podcast, Lewis, is very much that everybody has their own Dharma. They're on their own path, their own journey. And I think you're right. With the advent of social media, everyone's in this world of comparison. And it makes people feel like shit because, people are posting inauthentically or, all just the good stuff that's happening in their life. And
naturally.
People get taken out of their own lane, kind of you want to focus on your own passion, your own vision and your own path and not necessarily get dragged into other people's stuff.
Yeah.
So one other question I'd love to ask you as well is, because my background, Lewis, I studied a concept called Dharma, which is comes from the Vedas, the Vedic texts. So it's almost like the Indian version of the Bible.
Okay.
And the subject of Dharma, basically, Dharma is when you do your Dharma, you are taking the path of right action for you and the planet. So the idea is in the Dharmic text, they stipulate that you are following your passions and you have unique gifts and talents that you tap into and you tune into. And when you use those unique talents and you follow your passions, it's kind of life opens up for you and you experience this sort of series of synchronicities. And it's the way everybody should be living actually on the planet. And of course, I would say as much as 95% of people aren't doing that. They're just kind of surviving. But I wondered if you'd had any examples of synchronicities where, you're like, oh, wow, well, how did that happen? Or, people turn up at the right time. Or I just wondered if you have experienced what I'd call flow in your life.
Massively. And I'm almost sitting here wondering how I haven't heard so much about Dharma with the way you just described it. It sounds absolutely beautiful. And probably this is a great moment to say there is one of those moments. So I could pick a number of recent moments, but right now I'm having one talking to you where I wasn't so sure what we'd be talking about today. I knew we were going to do a great podcast, but by you mentioning the Dharma and how beautiful that just sounded to me, I know that that's now something I want to go and look into straight after this chat. So that these moments of flow that you speak of happen on such a daily basis for me, where so yesterday I had a meeting with a lady about she's doing some coastal regeneration stuff around West Sussex, and my mindset was, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I should go to it. I think something might come. And then I woke up, I was really tired. I was like, oh, can I deal with this meeting today? But I committed and went to the meeting. But before the meeting, I'd been to the gym, and I had a bit of a break at the gym lately. I'm trying to train back up my events, and I get a great feeling from coming out of the gym because I've worked on myself for a period of time, and it's a very good feeling. And straight away from that, I went to have this meeting with her. Had an incredible 1 hour chat with her. She was a lovely woman. Loads of opportunities came from it, and it was definitely. I left that meeting. I thought that has definitely been linked to my self help in the morning, going to the gym. There's so many things are linked like that, and you almost become a magnet when you're in a good mood. You magnetize all of these great opportunities and feelings. I think the best way to think of it is when you're in a bad mood, everything needs to go wrong. Everybody must have experienced that when you're walking down the stairs and your bag snags on the door, and then you shut something in the car door, and when your mindset is in this negative mood, you attract all the negatives. But when you're in a positive place, it goes one thing to the next. And to answer your question, yes, I very frequently have moments where I reflect on them too. I don't let them pass. I think that has definitely been a great moment because of this has happened. It's almost slightly related to karma, I don't know, but it's the flow of things is definitely a big factor of my life.
One of the areas I've been really exploring, Lewis, is around, it's called an emotional vibrational scale. And so like you talk about when you're down in the dumps, or you're depressed, or you actually are at a lower vibration, lower level of vibration. And of course, what you put out, you get back. So joy and passion and gratitude actually are some of the highest level emotions that we can have as a human being. So when you're constantly in gratitude or just joy, or you're loving your life, or you're doing what you're passionate about, you naturally vibrate at a higher level. And of course, that is attracted back to you. So that's kind of one of the ethos of what we're doing here, is by getting everyone to do what they're passionate about, we're kind of having a positive impact on those around us.
Well, that's we're very similar, and in fact, we've probably come together this way actually on this chat today.
Beautiful. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. For me, you are a wonderful example of a human being who is just naturally, innately going after what they want in life and following their passions. And like you said, I love the fact that you put that mobile phone down, because you just want to be in the moment and present. And I think you're a great example for our listeners, you know, that what you can achieve when you trust and you believe. So thank you. I really appreciate you coming on. I knew it was going to be a good conversation, but you're the first professional sports person we've had on the show. So I just thought it would be a great kind of perspective.
Oh, wow. And thank you for my part as well. It's been a pleasure to wake up on a beautiful day. There's not a cloud in the sky, which is obviously part of the flow today. And it was meant to be that I chatted with you. I've taken a lot from this as well. And I will definitely be looking at Dharma after this chat as well.
Excellent. We will see you again next week on Kitty Talks with another amazing guest. Bye-bye.
This podcast was sponsored by my Do Your Dharma course. Create a life so good that you pinch yourself. This 8-week online course demystifies Dharma and shows you how to tune in to why you're really here. Go to www.kittytalks.com/do your Dharma.